The following is How to Build a Mobile Flatboard Knife Throwing Target by Eric Michael Collins. Knife throwing is an inherently dangerous sport. Please be careful when practicing and make sure that the throwing area is clear. I do not condone or promote any dangerous or illegal activity, nor should I be held responsible for anything stupid that you decide to do. So my fiance Vanessa bought me these lovely knives for knife throwing. However, I have nothing to throw them up against. So after doing quite a bit of research online, finding some rather cheap solutions that would probably be throwaways, as well as finding some things that were rather impractical. I live in an apartment. I have a car, not a truck. I looked out there and I couldn't do anything that was hanging necessarily for convenience. I couldn't have a very long something to throw at target because it won't fit in my car. So what I did was I'm augmenting what I saw online from another YouTube person that I'll reference later. So here's a quick run through of the supplies that we have that we're going to be using to build this. The lumber, when all of the materials we purchased from Ganal. The lumber is actually two 20-foot long 2x6s. This is spruce. A lot of people recommend pine. They didn't have it. Spruce is still a soft wood. So here, what I wanted to do when I bought it was make sure that it was the best surface on the top for where the knives were going to be going at. So like this would be the top. On this side you'll notice that, there's a bit of a scuff here, and so if the blade was to hit this, it might ricochet off. So for safety purposes, I wanted to try and get as much smooth, flat surface without the knots as possible. The small ones are okay. And as well, during the 20-foot pieces of lumber, I put them next to each other so that it would show me which one was warped or not. I had him then cut it down into 6-foot long pieces, did the same thing, lined them up, tried to make sure there were no major gaps, in between the wood. And it was nice and flush like this to have the best chance of the blade sticking. And then once they did that, I had them cut them down into the 3-foot pieces. Before they were cut, I actually marked each of the boards that you'll see here alphabetically. So then when they were all still packed together, I had A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then you'll see E, T was top, and then of course there's an E, B, which is the bottom portion, to make sure that they go back together in the same way. Now, some of our hardware is the hinge. This is called a piano hinge. This is going to be nice for storage purposes. Then we've got these lovely stainless steel galvanized slotted flats. This is what we're going to be using to connect all of this together. And we've got these handles for carrying. These tapping screws, flat Phillips, are what's going to be going into the stability. Alright, so now they're all back in order. From F bottom, not sure if you can see that, E bottom, D, C, B, A, and the same thing over here, F through A top. And while I was doing this, there were some janky parts, from when they cut it, so I just took my little saw, part of my Swiss Army knife, and just brushed it off. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm not making furniture, so I can, just leave a little rough. I'm going to be in the end throwing knives at it. Here is the strip from earlier. Clearly, both are not 36 inches, so in the future I'd measure that, I guess, beforehand. It looks longer. Gonna have to figure out a solution for that. This is the excess. I ended up actually having a hacksaw, and I'm going to be cutting it off so that it fits right. So it didn't work out too well because I don't have a bench trying to saw off the end of the stainless steel, so I'm going to have to deal with it later and figure out a solution. That's about it. So I'm going to be joining the top and bottom right now. So I busted out the handy dandy tape measure and measured 6 inches from where the folding area is going to be on the board for the support on both ends. So ended up drilling in the first screws. Since this is not very it's a little bendable, I'm going to be doing one on the back towards the middle and one on the very front towards the top. The middle bracket is installed with all the screws in place. And I just finished screwing on the other brace. Flipped it over for the bottom of this. Screwing the piano hinge in place now. It's going to give a little bit extra support for all of this, but it's not really there to keep the wood together, more for mobility purposes. So of course we want to be careful opening and closing this. So here is the piano hinge screwed in. Noticed I tried to keep the spacing so it didn't land in any of the slots. It worked out actually quite perfectly. Now, for the moment of truth, lifting this up, bringing it down. These little guys are actually coming in handy for opening and closing, and it closes. And if you notice, because these on the inside were thick, there's really no gap here. It has worked, so it opens and closes quite nicely. Note to self, do not pull up on these with the full weight because it popped out. So I put another screw in, no big deal. But yeah, got my handles that I'm going to install now, 6.5 inches. All right, so we just got the handles installed. Tried to put it about 6 inches away from here because we're gonna have to get these cut off, and then I couldn't put it 6 inches because I couldn't grab it. So I put a little ways here. If I need to move it, I'll unscrew it, put it back in place. These still need to get cut off as well. Put one on this end and one on this side so that the load would be distributed between the two. And I wanted to have one handle here close to the hinge so that there wasn't a lot of weight on the hinge because it's not that strong to support all this. All right, so it is standing up nice and straight. I learned a couple of things actually. This does not require the original bolt that I thought for stability purposes. And since it's so heavy, it really isn't, moving, and all the weight is falling with gravity into the hinge, so it's actually holding it perfectly. Now we're going to take and draw an outline for our assailant that we'll be throwing these knives at. So Vanessa's been kind enough to give me an outline for a person, so we're going to sketch in the outline that we're going to be staining onto this. Sketch turned out great. You can see a little bit of it. It's a little funky, so just made it more proportionate. I had her in the middle of the center plank, so the head is more proportionate now. Shoulders, made the arms a little wider, and the hands were not traced as the fingers. We're going to be putting a target in there, so it's more round, as well as brought the legs out just a little bit, and I think we got a pretty good target. Alright, so we got our circles now, which are going to be our targets outlined using this Tupperware. Got them all throughout here, so most of the vital strike points are going to be along the middle of the body. Head, throat, heart, lungs, liver, so forth, groin, femoral arteries on the inside of the leg. And then got some cool ones over here for the hands. Alright, super happy. The hacksaw actually worked. Ended up getting it all nice and cut off. Just needed something more stable and affixed to, so it wasn't bouncing around. Gonna do the other three right now. So I went back to Ganal, got some more supplies. Got a couple more of these stainless steel slats for the other end. So I think it's gonna give it a little bit more support, even though it was looking good. Might as well just be extra safe. Don't want this thing falling apart. I had 100 screws originally. I'm not gonna put as many on each one, so I got 18 and 18 for each of these next ones. Should be plenty. And that's it, and I'm going to screw these in. Just took the handles out because they weren't originally spaced right. Now that I got the hacksaw, I'm going to put them in the right places, and I want to be able to have room to saw off the remaining of what I'm about to put on. Alright, the extra reinforcement ones went in pretty well. Top and bottom. I'm going to hacksaw them off. Wonderful, so hacked off the other two. Certainly may want to go back with a file on this, file it down just a touch, or otherwise remember not to grab it there. So I actually just put these handles back on, and the tips are over here of the last part I was telling you about, so it should be fine because handles people, or I will, instinctively be grabbing for. On to painting, I think. Alright, so now we got our little person taped out. The outer perimeter, I'm not going to be taping out the inner parts where the targets are because I'll be able to paint over those again. Tricky part was a little bit of the hands and the head. Everything else went pretty smoothly, just some painter's tape. Wanted to get a decent enough outline. I think that's going to be achievable. Curious to see how the paint goes through on the cracks though. Not really worried about the look of the back. Alright, so I got a little bit of black glossy enamel paint, 1 quart. And I'm going to be using a 2-inch brush for the big areas and a 1-inch brush for the smaller areas. Let's see how this goes. Alright, so it's been painted. The 1-inch brush definitely came in handy. I realized because I'm right-handed, it made it easy when I would start here and paint around over to the side and then stop, and as I was scooting around I just kept painting with my right hand and just hitting what my eye could see, not trying to see over my hand. That helped out quite a bit, and I'm going to pull the tape off. Wait for the paint to dry just a little bit longer, then I'm going to throw on the red in the target areas. I actually put some gloves on beforehand, which came in handy. Just some regular old, latex gloves. Put another pair on before I do the red. Alright, got all the holes filled in with the red paint. Gonna do a little bit of cleanup, let this dry, and then I'm going to fix the locking mechanism to keep it closed. The last bit to finish it off was inserting these 2 1.5-inch screws, longer ones than I had before I bought. 3 holes from the top and 3 holes from the bottom. On the other side, I did 2 more here and here. So these are about 6-inch bungees, very lightweight. Gives it a nice, keeps it pretty taut. And if you notice, when I lift it up, it's not opening. It's staying nice and closed. So this is the final finished end product. It's a little late in the night. It's dark outside to be throwing knives, but can't wait to wake up tomorrow morning and throw some at it. So we've got our mobile target now, and let's see if it fits in the car. Perfectly. So if you're thinking about coming into our house, watch out. She means business. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. You may leave comments, questions, and improvements below. If you'd like, subscribe for future updates. Also, visit ericmichaelcollins.com for more helpful information. Thank you.